One of my father's greatest hobbies was meteorology, and he always wanted to be a weatherman, but he was brought up in foster care and never had that opportunity. So when I was a little kid, my dad used to sit with me and teach me about weather. And I remember, boy, did I love snow. I loved snow, and my father loved snow too. So we bonded over blizzards and snowstorms and Arctic outbreaks in the wintertime, and my dad would teach me everything he knew about meteorology. And I was very young, 5, 6, 7 years old. And by the age of 10, I loved weather. Yeah, that was a childhood dream. And from 10 years old forward, I wanted to always be a weatherman. I'd be in middle school and high school, and I was known as the school weatherman, and I would broadcast on the loudspeaker with the morning announcements at school, and I was just the weather guy. I loved it. And I landed my first weather job when I was 20 years old at Metro Weather Service in Valley Stream, Long Island, New York. And I was there for 5 years. Papagano, if anybody knows that name. WALK Radio on Long Island, Papagano was their weather guy. And I heard him on the radio for so many years, and I finally, in 1990, in the summertime, had an opportunity to meet with him. And he trained me on how to forecast and use the microphone. And by October of 1990, he hired me on a 4-hour shift on Sunday mornings to do the weather forecasting. And what an opportunity that was. Boy, did I love weather, and I was now in the weather field, and it was really incredible. And also in 1992, lo and behold, for 2 years, I was working at Metro Weather from 1990 to 1995, but I also worked at CBS in New York with Frank Field and Mr. G. Who would have thought? It was pretty incredible. What an incredible time. Here I am working with weather guys and those news anchors in New York City that were making, $500,000, $1 million a year. And here I am at $6.75 an hour. That's what they were paying. But I was there for 2 years. I really enjoyed it. Ultimately, I had left. It just wasn't enough money, and I couldn't sustain it financially. And I stayed at Metro Weather until 1995. And then I really wanted to get into television. With 5 years of forecasting under my belt, I figured I'd give it a shot for TV. So I started applying to television stations in the Hudson Valley and Southern New England. Nobody would hire me because I had no television experience. But a weatherman in Boston, I believe it was WTNH, I believe. His name was Harvey Leonard. So if anybody's from Boston, you know that name, Harvey Leonard. He had called me, believe it or not, and left me a voicemail, and then we spoke. I called him back, and he said that they're hiring a weather forecaster for radio at Fleet Weather in Hopewell Junction, New York, in the Hudson Valley. Hopewell Junction. Never heard of it, but I called. I spoke with the general manager. Jim Witt was one of the owners and GMs of Fleet Weather. Went up there, had an interview, and they hired me. Wow. So I gave my 2-week notice at Metro Weather, and I went to Fleet Weather. And I was at Fleet Weather for 1 year. And that's where really I was able to grow meteorologically as a forecaster. I had a 3-year contract at Fleet Weather. And after 1 year, one of our clients was WRNN, Regional News Network. They were based out of Kingston, New York. And their weather girl, Lisa Malella, she was also Miss South Carolina at some point. But she was the weather girl there, and they did their forecasting through us. They would call Fleet Weather, we'd give them the forecast, and then Lisa would broadcast our forecast. Well, one day they were doing a story on how we forecast at Fleet Weather. So Lisa came down with a camera crew and they interviewed me. They ran the story, and literally within about 3 days, the general manager of WRNN calls me. And they liked my look and my style, since I was the one that was interviewed for the story on forecasting. And they wanted to know if I'd be interested in television. Well, this was my childhood dream, so, did I snatch that up? So I went in for an interview. They put me in front of the green screen, and I had to do weather forecasting with the maps behind me, but there was no, it was a green wall, you know how it is. So I did it, and I did well, and they hired me. April 1st, 1996 was my first day on television at RNN in New York. Oh boy, was that exciting. My childhood dream. The world was my footstool. I have finally reached my dream. Television. I was a television weatherman. Life was good. I was on top of the world. My parents were proud. My friends looked up to me, and I was just, I was on top of the world. I really wasn't struggling with many things personally at that time. I was building a career, and I was just hustling, and I did it, and I felt really good. I wasn't making a lot of money, I'll be honest with you. I was making $21,000 a year in 1996 at my first weather gig. But I was broke, but I was doing my dream. And for me, it was about following my dreams regardless and making it happen, and I did. And what an achievement, what an accomplishment. So I was there about 2 years. 1998 is when I started looking elsewhere to grow. I wanted to work in a bigger industry, television industry like NBC or ABC, rather than an independent, which R&M was an independent television station at the time. So I was applying at all these different television stations, and nobody would hire me, not enough experience. I had that New York accent, so a lot of markets around the country didn't want somebody with a New York accent. And one day, I received a phone call from Bob Jordan from WPTV in West Palm Beach, Florida. Bob Jordan called me, and he left me a voicemail. I still remember that voicemail. I was jumping up and down for about 20 minutes in my living room before I called Bob back. And he basically said that I remember the verbiage. He said, "We are interested in your availability. Please get back to me as soon as you can." And he left his phone number. And I played the message over and over. "Hi, this is Bob Jordan from WPTV in West Palm Beach, Florida." And I just listened to it over and over again. And I was jumping for joy. Oh my gosh, an NBC affiliate was interested in me. So called them back. We set up an interview. They flew me down about a week later, and they hired me that night. He gave me a contract over dinner. Of course, I grabbed the contract from his hand as delicately as possible and spilled a huge glass of wine over his dinner plate and his lap. So that was the beginning of a friendship, I guess you'd say. Things were great. I gave my 2 weeks notice at R&N, and here I am. I moved to South Florida. I'm living in the Palm Beaches. I felt like I moved to paradise. It was just so beautiful down here. My life was pretty good at that time. I was on top of the world. The world was my footstool. I had achieved my dream. I was a weatherman at NBC, an NBC affiliate in West Palm Beach, Florida. Of all places, how beautiful was it? Oh boy, it was fantastic. I loved it. And I forecast at the National Hurricane Center at times. I went to the National Hurricane Center for the first time in 1999. We were tracking Hurricane Floyd. Floyd stayed off the coast. Ultimately, he moved up toward the Carolinas, but that was my first time broadcasting there, and I went there for years and broadcast at the Hurricane Center, and I became like a hurricane specialist, and I gained so much knowledge. And Bob Jordan was so proud of the way I broadcast from the Hurricane Center, and boy, did I learn a lot of knowledge about hurricanes down at the National Hurricane Center. Around 2000, the year 2000, I just turned 30, and I was just in the process of buying my first home. It was a townhouse, 2-story, beautiful. And life was great. I had a decent income. I was doing fitness modeling. I was on the beach of Fort Lauderdale, and a modeling company came up to me and asked me if I'd do some magazines. So I did. I was doing fitness modeling. I mean, that was another one thing that I wanted to do when I was younger, like 10 years prior. I promised myself one way or another at one point in my life, I'm going to be in a fitness magazine. And I was. Exercise for Men Only. It was an international fitness magazine, and I was in there. I met up with so many opportunities for the following several years. I was living my dream, an NBC weatherman. So I relished in it. I did a lot of community involvement. I volunteered for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. I also volunteered for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. I spoke throughout the community. I provided a series over a period of years, hurricane seminars, very involved, informing the community about hurricane safety and hurricane development and hurricane history. And it became very popular. I was known as the hurricane guy. And in 2005, I earned the Dandy Don Award for being a true voice in a community, one person annually receives this award, and I was honored and privileged in 2005 to receive the Dandy Don Award. This was another accomplishment. I was just on top of the world over and over and over again. And then hurricanes. We had Hurricane Wilma and Hurricane Francis and Jean. If you remember, Hurricane Francis and Jean both made landfall at Hutchinson Island on the east coast of Florida in 2004. And then Hurricane Wilma came through, made landfall in southwest Florida, came through the Palm Beaches in 2005. And Dean Tendrich and Steve Weigel and I, we were all over it. And during Francis, Al Roca came down from NBC in New York, and he was forecasting live down at West Palm Beach. And he came to our studio, and he forecast with us. We were on air with Al Roca. What a cool experience. That was really neat. This experience at WPTV and NBC Florida was fantastic. During my years at WPTV, I also had an opportunity to teach an uncredited course in meteorology, which was an amazing opportunity to educate people that wanted to learn all the facets of meteorology. And I absolutely loved that. I did that one day a week for a period of time, and that was quite an experience. I was also labeled the Mighty Meteorologist when I did some fitness modeling, and I was a weatherman, so they titled me the Mighty Meteorologist. And my friends and my family got a kick out of that. And also, I had an opportunity when I went to the Improv in West Palm Beach all the time. I was relatively close with the owner, Renee, and I went to the Improv quite frequently. And one night I was at the Improv having a nice dinner, and they unexpectedly called me on stage to give the forecast. But I decided to go up there and not give the forecast, to entertain and have a little bit of fun.
If you remember, November came, and I was forecasting the first cool wave was coming. And it was a 5-day forecast, and Thursday night it was going to drop at 59 degrees. Now, I'm from New York. You know, if you're from New York in November, 59 is still warm. 5-day forecast, 59 Thursday night, little cool waves coming in. So Thursday night comes, and I'm at Clematis Street in shorts and a tank top, you know, just kind of chilling out, walking down. It's like in the high 50s, a little north breeze. Everyone's huddled at Starbucks. Hats, scarves, jackets, breath coming out of their mouths, hot coffee. And I'm walking around in shorts and a tank top. Going to my friend's house, the heat's on, 84, you know? It's like, oh my God, fires. Did you know, how many of you are here in the summertime, all summer? 2 people? So that was real slow reaction. You know that like there's fires in Wellington, drought, hasn't rained in 3 months. This is hell. This is hell. Hell. You know, and what I don't understand as a forecaster is, why are you watching the weather June, July, August, September, and even into October? Because what? Partly sunny, chance of a storm, 95. What are you watching for? And it's hysterical because 80% of the people that watch the news watch for weather. What the hell are you watching? I figure on Monday I'm going to put 5 suits on, take 5 weathercasts, and play one each day. What the heck are you watching?
During that time, I even received my first degree black belt in Taekwondo under Master Lutz at the College of Taekwondo, and I went to a fried chicken tasting at a culinary school, and I actually met the last living relative of the Colonel. So this was quite fun as well. I was privileged with years of building an amazing career of my community involvement, earning that Dandy Don Award. Also along the way, I was voted best weathercaster in South Florida, New Times Magazine. I was second best hair contender. At 95.5 FM, they did a contest for viewers for the best looking anchor. And I actually won best looking anchor in South Florida. My ratings were through the roof, the Nielsen ratings. I was very high on those ratings. I mean, things were great. I was a voice for the gay community. I hosted gay prides, and I was a role model of sorts for a long time. And I was living the dream. I was living the dream. All of this was the opportunities and the honor I had and the privilege I had. And yeah, I look back with bittersweet feelings. Feel bitter that it's gone, and sweet that I had the opportunity to experience that in my life, and it gave me tremendous fulfillment.